The HOA fined me $50,000 for building a dam that, ironically, was the only thing keeping their own neighborhood from turning into a swamp. They didn't just send letters. They sent a deputy straight to my door with threats of jail time if I didn't tear it down, and standing behind him was the HOA president, a woman named Evelyn Pratt, smirking like she'd already won, waving around a stack of papers I could tell were fake even before I looked closely. She thought she had me cornered, thought I'd just give in, pay the fine, and crawl away in shame. But she had no idea who she was dealing with. I might be retired, but I spent 40 years as an electrician, 40 years learning to problem solve, to trace every wire until I found the fault, to fix things with precision and patience. I wasn't about to fold just because a bully in a blazer thought she could scare me. When I got that first letter, I honestly thought it was a mistake. I'd been living in my house for over 3 decades, raised my kids there, fixed everything that ever broke in it with my own 2 hands. My plan was to spend my retirement quietly, maybe putter around the yard, maybe take my grandkids fishing in the little creek behind our street. That creek, though, it had been a problem for years. Every heavy rain, it would overflow and turn our cul-de-sac into a swamp. My neighbor, Rick, lost a brand new mower to the flood one spring. Another time, Carla's shed took on water and the floor warped so bad she had to tear the whole thing out. We all complained to the HOA again and again. They sent a committee once, looked at it, and told us fixing it was cost prohibitive, which is HOA speak for not our problem. So I fixed it myself. Took me 3 months of planning and sweating in the backyard, hauling concrete, stacking rocks, reinforcing the channel. I built a small dam at the bottleneck of the creek. It wasn't some giant wall. It was just enough to slow the water, hold it for a bit, and send the extra down a natural drainage path that ran through the woods. I'm no civil engineer, but I know how to build something that lasts. And it worked. First storm after I finished, I watched the water rise, slow down, and drain away exactly like it should. Our yard stayed dry. Rick and Carla came over with a bottle of bourbon to say thanks. For the first time in years, we thought we'd beaten the flooding. Then came that letter. $50,000. Not 500, not 5,000, 50,000. For unauthorized construction altering community water flow. My heart pounded as I read it. I thought maybe it was a typo. Maybe they'd fix it once I called. So I dialed the number on the letter, Evelyn's home phone, and she picked up with that clipped voice of hers. "There's no mistake, Mr. Miller," she said, syrupy but sharp. "You built a structure in violation of regulations. The fine stands." I tried reasoning. I told her the creek had been a problem for years, that the dam fixed it, that the neighbors were happy. She cut me off. "We aren't governed by what makes your friends happy. We are governed by rules. Pay, or we'll take further action." And then she hung up. That's when I realized this wasn't a mistake. It was an attack. I spent that night pacing, furious, until something caught my eye on the documents she'd stapled to the back of the letter. Permits from the county. Only, the seal looked off. Crooked, blurry, like it had been copied one too many times. I pulled up the official seal from the county's website. Side by side, the difference was glaring. Evelyn hadn't just invented rules. She had forged government documents. That discovery flipped a switch inside me. Fear gave way to cold determination. She wasn't just some crank with a clipboard. She was a fraud trying to steal $50,000 from me. So, I started collecting. Every old photo I had of the backyard floods, every HOA letter admitting they knew about the problem, every receipt from building the dam. I set up a little wildlife camera by the creek to record storms and show exactly how the dam worked. And when the next big storm came, that camera captured it perfectly. Water rising, hitting the dam, slowing, draining down the side channel with 0 damage. Still, Evelyn doubled down. Sent me another letter, this time accusing me of privacy violations because of my security camera, 10,000 more in fines. And to add insult to injury, the HOA installed their own cameras on the lamppost across the street, pointing directly at my house. It was intimidation, plain and simple. I knew I couldn't fight this alone. That's when I called Maya. We'd worked at the same power plant for years, me on the electrical side, her as a civil engineer. She's one of those people who can spot a flaw in a plan from a mile away. She came over, combed through the documents, laughed at how sloppy the forgery was, then walked out back to inspect the dam. After measuring, checking, and running her calculations, she looked me in the eye and said, This isn't just some pile of rocks, Jack. It's a properly designed gravity weir. It's safe. It's effective. She even wrote up a stamped engineering report, complete with diagrams. Armed with that, I sent a formal demand to the HOA. Rescind the fines, stop the harassment, or face exposure. I thought that would scare them straight. Instead, Evelyn escalated again. Suddenly, I was being accused of storing unsafe construction materials. The violation included a grainy photo of my wheelbarrow and some bags of cement. The only problem? Those had been in my locked shed the night before. Evelyn had driven by at dawn, snapped a staged photo, and used it as evidence. But my camera caught her doing it. When her enforcer, Tom, stomped into my yard with a clipboard claiming the dam was structurally unsound, I recorded him too. He was there for 30 seconds, kicked at a rock, scribbled a note, and left. That same night, I got a violation notice with his inspection report. I had video proof it was a lie. At this point, Evelyn was lashing out at anyone who supported me. Rick got a fine for his grass being half an inch too tall. Carla was cited for having the wrong shade of mailbox. Neighbors started avoiding eye contact, afraid they'd be next. I realized I had to do more than defend myself. I had to give them a way to fight back. So I wrote up a one-page guide. Save every email, photograph every notice with a timestamp, keep a log of every conversation, and I slipped copies into mailboxes at night. It was a small act of rebellion, but it planted seeds. Then the hammer fell. A deputy showed up again, Evelyn right behind him, waving a new document claiming my dam was on HOA common land. Another forgery, another lie. This time they filed a criminal complaint for trespassing. A judge, without hearing me out, issued an emergency injunction. I had 72 hours to tear down the dam or face jail. I can't describe the weight of that paper in my hands. I'd never even had a speeding ticket, and now I was facing jail over a project that had saved everyone's property. My wife looked at me with fear in her eyes and said, "Jack, maybe it's time to give up. It's not worth prison." And for the first time, I considered it. So I gave in. Hired a contractor. Watched as the excavator clawed apart 2 months of my sweat and labor. Sent the HOA a photo of the rubble as proof. Evelyn didn't reply. She didn't need to. She thought she had won. Then the rain came. It started that very night, a steady downpour that turned into a full-blown storm. By morning, the creek was a raging brown river. Without the dam, nothing slowed it. My yard was half underwater. Rick's mower floated in a sea of mud. Carla's patio furniture was bobbing like toy boats. The neighborhood was sinking, exactly like I warned. And in that disaster, I saw my opening. I documented everything. Time-lapse videos, high-resolution photos, neighbors giving statements on camera about their damages. When the water receded, the whole cul-de-sac looked like a war zone. People were angry now, not at me, but at the HOA for tearing down the one thing that had protected them. That's when I called the local news. A reporter named Sarah Jenkins came out with a cameraman. I laid out everything. The fake seals, the forged permits, the video of the dam working, the staged violations, Tom's sham inspection, the map with redrawn property lines. One by one, I showed her undeniable proof. She interviewed Rick and Carla, filmed their destroyed yards, and by the time she left, I could see it in her eyes. This wasn't just a quirky neighborhood dispute. This was fraud. 2 nights later, the story aired. They zoomed in on the fake documents, played clips of my security footage, and even caught Evelyn outside a grocery store. She looked flustered, defensive, and guilty. The fallout was immediate. My phone rang nonstop. People across town shared stories of their own HOA nightmares. And Evelyn's allies on the board? They scattered like cockroaches in the light. The emergency HOA meeting that followed was packed. Normally, maybe 6 people showed up. This time, half the neighborhood crammed into the clubhouse. People were shouting about fines they'd gotten over dead grass, peeling paint, trash cans left out a day too long. Years of bottled-up frustration exploded all at once. Evelyn tried to gavel it down, calling it a witch hunt. Then I stood up, calm, and held up my phone with a photo of her signature on a fake complaint, alongside video of her car outside my house at dawn. The room went dead quiet. She looked around for support, but even Tom avoided her eyes. And just like that, the mask cracked. She gathered her papers, walked out, and by the end of the night, she had resigned. The board, desperate to save themselves, voted to rescind all my fines, issue a public apology, and cover damages from the flood using the HOA's reserve funds. But the victory wasn't just mine. Together, with Maya and my neighbors, we rewrote the bylaws, capped fines at reasonable levels, required time-stamped evidence for every violation, banned surveillance cameras aimed at private homes, and opened all records to every homeowner. Transparency became the new rule. A month later, with a legitimate county permit, we rebuilt the dam. This time, it wasn't just my project. Rick mixed concrete, Carla brought sandwiches, and folks who had once avoided me stopped by to lend a hand. The dam wasn't just concrete and stone anymore. It was a symbol that we'd taken our community back. The following spring, the rains came again. I stood on my porch with Maya, 2 beers in hand, watching the water rise. It hit the dam, slowed, and drained away, leaving our yards dry. Maya smirked and said, she really thought she could bully a creek into submission. I shook my head and told her, you can't vote against gravity. And in the end, the truth, just like that water, proved unstoppable. Now I've got to ask you, if you were in my shoes, would you have torn the dam down to stay out of jail, or stood your ground no matter the risk? Was I right to fight back the way I did, or should I have handled it differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's hear where you stand on HOA power, justice, and community. And if you've ever dealt with a nightmare HOA yourself, share your story. I guarantee you're not alone. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video, because the more voices we add, the harder it becomes for bullies like Evelyn to silence us.